Disney's Scary Storybook Collection. Winnie the Pooh, Frankenpooh. It was the sort of crisp and sparkling autumn afternoon in the 100-acre wood that filled the heart of a very small animal with a story bursting to be told and desperate to be listened to. And at Piglet's house, where he had just finished hosting a small tea for his friends Rabbit, Pooh, Tigger, and Gopher, Piglet quietly announced that telling a story was just what he was going to do. Tigger leaped out of the overstuffed armchair he was sharing with Rabbit and Gopher to where Piglet was standing nervously on the hearth. Is it a ghost story full of spooky bulls and horrible creatures? Or, said Tigger with a gasp, is it about a mad scientist type? Oh no, Piglet protested, not mad at all. Quite happy and cheerful, really. Then he began the story. Once upon a time. Tigger listened for a moment, then interrupted. Say, it's broad daylight. Even a not-so-scary story has to happen at night, you know. The picture in Piglet's head of a beautiful castle on the bright summer day suddenly grew very dark. Oh dear, he said to himself. And, said Tigger, a nice thunderstorm wouldn't hurt either. Piglet's ears dropped as his imagination included a fierce thunderstorm, crashing and rattling around the castle in his story. But Piglet wasn't ready to give up. He had a story to tell, and he was going to tell it his way, if no one minded very much. Piglet thought about what glorious snacks he could whip up in a spotlessly neat and busily buzzing laboratory if he were a pleasant and very cheerful scientist. He wasn't a bit mad. He wasn't even slightly annoyed, not even at Tigger. Piglet said as he imagined the scientist holding a dripping sandwich, peanut butter and jelly. My favorite, and so very good for you, too. Then Tigger suddenly gasped, interrupting Piglet's story. What is it? Piglet said, demandingly. What is it? If you're going to tell a story about a scientist, Tigger said, he ought to at least be doing something terrible, like creating a boogly monster. A monster, Piglet said in a tiny, not very hopeful that the story was going to go his way sort of voice. Yes, said Tigger, the monster, Frankenpooh. The scientist looked at Frankenpooh with mixed feelings. Pooh? A monster? Yeah, Tigger said. That's abso-positively perfect. Only he ought to be bigger than that. And at once Frankenpooh grew bigger and bigger and bigger until the very small scientist felt very small indeed. Oh, bother, said Frankenpooh with a sigh as he bumped his head on top of the page. Now that's what I call a monster, Tigger said with satisfaction. Hoo-hoo-hoo! A very small scientist ran around the monster's feet in a frightened flurry of activity, shouting, Oh, help me! Oh, save me! This is very terrifying, Tigger said in delight. Monster Frankenpooh, after much thinking, and scratching of his oversized ears, reached a monstrous conclusion. I want honey, he said in a voice so loud he surprised himself, and he went looking for a not-so-small smackerel of something sweet to eat. Honey, he said again, just because he liked the sound of it. And the monster Frankenpooh, said Tigger, went looking high and low for whatever it is monster Frankenpoohs look for. Honey, yelled Frankenpooh again. And the villagers skedaddled for life and lumber, Tigger said. Trembling in your socks, aren't you? Clinging to the edge of your seats. But there's no stopping that gigantical monstrosity. And everybody was up to their necks in arms, Tigger continued dramatically, because they knew who it was that was responsible for the horriblest monster that was terrifying them. Oh, dear, said the scientist with a moan, as he found himself surrounded by the full of wrath villagers. Help, said the scientist. Stop the story, please. It was an accident, and I didn't mean to do it. I just wanted it to be a nice, not-so-scary story. And Piglet opened his eyes to discover himself back on the hearth of his very own fireplace, surrounded by his good friends, Tigger, Rabbit, and Gopher. But Piglet, said Tigger, it was nothing to get so upset about. It was just a silly story, whistled Gopher. Of course, Piglet, said Rabbit gently. There was no monster, and no one's angry at you. Piglet looked around in great relief. No? He asked in a small voice. No, all his friends said reassuringly. After his friends had settled Piglet in his favorite armchair and given him a cup of his favorite hot chocolate, Rabbit put his arm comfortingly around Piglet's very small shoulder. You really should learn the difference between what's real and what isn't, Rabbit said gently to Piglet. Shouldn't he, Pooh? Yes, Piglet, said the very large and Frankenpooh-looking bear. You really should, and so should I. Then he emitted quite the largest Pooh Bear snort and sigh they had ever heard. Oh, bother. And Pooh did eventually get the story straightened out in his head full of fluff, returned to the convenient size proper to the amounts of honey required to feed an always hungry bear. The end.